Good afternoon, this is Media Center Ukraine Odessa, and we are starting our work for today. You can watch us online, both on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook page. You can also ask questions online, just use the messenger that you can now see on your screens. Our current topic is current threats to southern Ukraine from the Russian army. And perhaps we can summarize the December 2023 as of today. Our speaker is Natalia Gumenyuk, head of the Joint Coordination Press Center of the Defense Forces of Southern Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine, glory to heroes. Thank you for joining us today. Let's start with some general information, and then we can have some clarification questions from myself and from my colleagues. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, everyone. And today we can speak about yet another successful operation of the Defense Forces of Ukraine. And this is the sacred rule of war, and to attack enemy subjects. And we are not embarrassed with that, and would like to congratulate everyone with such significant results. And when it comes to our operations, they are rather significant, especially when it comes to the week before Christmas. And in our area of responsibility, 3 jets were destroyed. And generally in December, we can also mention the one downed near the Zmyny Island on the 5th of December. And this was very important for our area of responsibility, because we can remember that tactical aviation was actively used by our enemy along the contact line, and it was the jets were used to launch aerial guided bombs, actually to attack the left bank in particular. More than 330 aerial guided bombs were launched in December alone from the tactical jets. But after the 5th of December, when in Kherson area 2 jets were destroyed, the enemy just tried to understand how to counteract that. And since that day, we can see no aerial guided bombs in our area of responsibility, not only on the ground, but also in the Black Sea. During December, enemies almost all nights attacked us with drones. There were only 4 nights without drone attacks in our responsibility. And I would like to remind you that this is Vinnytsia, Odessa, Mykolaiv, Kherson Oblast, and the part of Dnipropetrovsk and part of Kirovohrad Oblast. When it comes to frequency of drones attacks, and when it comes to how intensive they are, in December, we had one hectic night when 31 items were destroyed, and more than 270 drones were launched in our responsibility in December. It is also very important for when it comes to December, the application of FPV drones. And in some areas, they use FPV drones instead of artillery that is destroyed rather successfully by us. We recorded 112 attacks with FPV drones, and in parallel they use UAVs, which are used with the cluster ammunition. We could see more than 220 such projectiles that were used against the civilians in Kherson Oblast, especially when it comes to the right bank. And over the last 2 weeks, the enemy has become more active on the other coast. And I would like to remind you about the danger from air. Because this month we have seen several attacks on civilians that were near shops, that were near their houses, that were hit by grenades, and several times police cars were also under attack. This means that the enemy tries to identify the special vehicles like police cars, ambulances, and we could see that in November. And they can also use such projectiles to attack these special vehicles, which is quite dangerous. When it comes to damage of the enemy's attacks, we can say that port infrastructure facilities were under attack, silos, and we can see a lot of residential houses like block of flats and private houses which are closer to the front line, as well as shops. They were attacked by enemies, and rather often we can see enemies attacks on healthcare institutions. So this is their priority, especially in Kherson region. Are these civilian institutions? Yes, these are the hospitals from the city of Kherson in particular, and the regional center, which is Kherson, despite the fact that the enemy states that they are going to come back, is just attacked all the time by artillery, by multiple launch rocket systems, and several missiles were launched to attack Kherson, in particular healthcare institutions and educational institutions. And so they just continue these denazifications. They try to destroy our nation. As for Novocherkassk ship in Feodosia that was attacked today, that information that it used to carry drones, we verify the information. We don't use fakes, contrary to our enemies. So we all the time verify the information. As soon as we have some evidence, we will be able to make an official statement. Today we can see that the enemy used Novocherkassk and other ships, landing ships, for their logistics, because their logistics is now complicated because of the operations of the armed forces of Ukraine. That's why they need just to use these ships, military ships, for transportation. And by the way, in December, we could see that they did not have more than 5-7 units. And over the last several days, on the 20th of December, we saw the last time the ships on duty in the Black Sea. But after that, all the ships, including missile carriers, were returned to their bases. And so back then, they already felt some danger. That's why such a big landing ship could be loaded, because we could see a significant detonation. And this means that were also some ammunitions, fuels, and perhaps they were also shaheds, but we should verify this information. There is also information that apart from Novocherkassk landing ship, two more, or like several more ships could be attacked. They use the groups of ships at different ports, not only near Novorossiysk. They try to use their ships as far as possible from the combat zone. So this could be possible, but I'd like to emphasize once again that we first need to verify the information. We all saw videos in open sources of significant detonations, so we could speak here about significant fire. And even if there were ships far from each other, other ships could be also damaged as a result of this attack. Thank you, dear colleagues. Do you have questions? Olga Donska, where Ukraine? I had a question about that landing ship. Do you know what the landing ship was attacked with? Because Russians say about Storm Shadow that Ukraine used several missiles. Could you just share more details about this operation? I think that everyone is interested in continuation of this series, so let it for them be a surprise as well. Let them guess. Mikhail Shtekel, thank you very much for the information shared. I have a question about last week. Last week we had a journalist conference, and one of the topics was the conditions of activities of journalists in the south of Ukraine. Unfortunately, you could not join us because of the objective reasons, and we understand your situation. But the topic was really actively discussed. The first question, have you seen our press conference or do you have any information about our discussions? And secondly, could we expect some changes with regard to the journalists' activities? And that was also the announcement of the president that the conditions of work for journalists during the war will be changed. Thank you very much for your question. And of course, this is a very important topic. Unfortunately, I have not seen that stream yet, but I will do that for sure. But I do understand the general request from journalists. And in our turn, I would like to ask you to understand us, because we are talking about military operations here, and this is up for the commanders to decide if journalists could be allowed, because this could affect the success of the operation, which could be ongoing. During the last press conference of the president, he also mentioned that the active discussion of the counteroffensive and the transparency just had a negative impact on the counteroffensive. That's why now we are trying to find a balance that will allow us to effectively implement our military operations, and on the other hand, for the journalists to be able to show the work of our military units. And we can now see some increased activity of the military television. There were some transformations, and perhaps that was the reason why there was the lack of open information. But when it comes to the open access to the information, this is rather conditional when it comes to the war, to our combat operations. We are as transparent and open as possible, taking into consideration our current conditions. And when it comes to the work of our centers, we have previous conclusions, and more than 300 journalist groups, they just were allowed to work here over the last several months. So that's why we are trying to respond to journalist requests, taking into consideration the conditions. If it is impossible to allow journalists to our responsibility, we always offer alternative. Everyone want to get to the left bank. We want to get there as well, but we need to ensure the conditions of operations for the professionals. Not all journalists want to get to the left bank. When it comes to counteroffensive, the discussion was really very active, but it was mostly covered by the United States, by the UK, by Germany, so the mass media that provided technical support to our defense forces, and it was not that vastly covered by Ukrainian journalists, so we cannot say that it was possible by Ukrainian journalists, because for us its information was not that provided. And actually the representatives of the president's office also discussed that a lot when it, for example, Mr. Podolak, and of course, not all strata of the population can be satisfied with the methods when it comes to transparent. But we try to be as open and transparent as possible. But there is certain danger in this because the core view envisages a lot of limitations. in particular when it comes to journalists. But we decided to be still open, but we take into consideration the conditions of the operations. Olga, the floor is yours. I have one more question. Have you seen some significant attacks on the critical infrastructure facilities, like the energy units, or has the enemy changed the tactics? In our area of responsibility, we can already see that trend when the enemy tries to strike the critical infrastructure facilities. Now it's closer to the front line, especially when it comes to the Kherson Oblast, because we can see that in Kherson Oblast they attack water, gas, power, heat supply facilities. So we can see a lot of attacks there that target critical infrastructure facilities. When it comes to home front facilities, we can see the focus of the enemy, but our air defense forces are still able to protect such facilities. But it doesn't mean that in the future they will try attacking our infrastructure facilities. Perhaps the enemy could wait for the deteriorated weather conditions to attack critical infrastructure facilities. I have a question that in Kiev and in the Odessa region, we can speak about most efficient air defense forces and systems. Can we say that the enemy is trying to find it? This is one of the priorities of our enemies, is try to find the air defense systems. And when they use Ha-31 missiles, they are targeted right on the air defense systems. And this is not that important for them if this the most capable, the most strong system. They are interested in all air defense units because if they destroy it, they can increase the efficiency. And at all levels, including the international level, it was discussed that the air defense systems in Odessa should be strengthened. And our partners clearly understand this, that Odessa has port infrastructure facilities that keeps functioning not only in the interests of Ukraine, but also representing the interests of the whole world, because we have the navigation corridor channel. That's why strengthening of our air defense units, this is our constant priority, and this is the priority targets for our enemy. We understand this. We also rely on our citizens that they will not provide information about air defense operations. As the recent incident when certain citizens were detained because they recorded the activities of air defense units. The investigation is going on, and I would like to remind everyone that such systems should work in secrecy to ensure our safety and security. Do you expect any increased danger during the new year? I cannot say, because the war is ongoing. The enemy could attack us every time and every location. And we can see that even the Christmas Eve could not stop the enemy, and the attacks were quite intensified. That's why people should be ready to ensure their safety and security. If people hear air raid alerts, please don't neglect them. During the press conference, the president has mentioned that the enemy had no significant victories over 2023. Could you just share information about the south of Ukraine? In the south, the enemy has seen no significant victories because you can see now that they keep promising that they will come back to Kherson, but this is now impossible. They also just acknowledged that there is Ukrainian bridgehead on the left bank. And also, you can see that there are no results of the attacks on our positions. Our work is very difficult. We still have a lot to do. And our victories, our achievements are not that big now, but they are very important for our prospects. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we will continue at 12:30 noon.